else. I assume that Edge takes up less resources, right?
Nope.
I don't use
Actually, I have
Edge
no
to do
idea.
anything but lewd stuff, so let me make
What's
sure that
going on,
Edge is not
everybody?
gonna
Gonna be checking out some
show you all my
Booksmarts.
lewd stuff.
I don't know for how long, maybe
Oh
like 20,
no!
30 minutes. We'll see. Got it.
And the mic
Got
is
a
all fucked,
guest
and I have
coming
no
over,
idea
so
why, but you know.
Don't know if
Oh
she
well.
wants to be on camera and
These
stuff.
are things that I can't solve with
especially,
Supreme
you know,
because
I
they're
can't
down to my hardware
do with the guests,
limitations.
and that's what you chat. So
I'm going to. Oh man,
see how that goes.
are we? PC is about to explode. Not using Firefox.
I just have it play in the background,
dude.
though.
Give me something helpful. I assume Edge takes up less resources, right? Stream immediately.
My chat
lags.
says you want to talk. No.
I hate you guys. I hate you so much.
Love you
When we have
guys.
technical problems, you guys
Yeah,
are the fucking
me.
bane of my existence. I swear to God.
Oh no. Back to the lab again.
I'm treating all my gear like an Atari. I'm just blowing on every orifice, hoping that it fucking gets rid of
I need
the
a mute
dust.
button
that's
on this
fucking
dang
shaking
thing.
my shit up. I know that's not how it works, but that's all I got, you know? I'm not some fucking electronical engineer, dude. I gotta fucking just blow on shit and kick it and hit it and just hope that it works, dude. I'm like a parent that doesn't know how to parent, dude. I just beat the shit out of everything. I hope it makes it better. Man, that fucking sucks. Oh well. I guess I'm gonna have to have my chat open on my phone. You guys are gonna have to have a people body today. Unfortunate. Not ideal.
That book
I
fucker.
prefer not to have you on the people body, but you know, you know, you can't have everything that you want, I guess. I'm gonna rock the night away. I'm gonna rock with you, with you, with you. Dance the night away. I'm gonna rock with you. And we're gonna rock the night away. Fuck, man. My internet's fucked.
How's it dance you?
And this guy was inviting me to stay here another month, and I just don't know.
Okay, I can't sing,
If
sorry.
the internet was better, maybe, but the internet is kind of not good all the time. I feel bad that I started the stream knowing the internet hasn't been super great to me today, too. But oh well. I'm opening Restream chat so I can see everybody, including the YouTube people right now. Give me just 2 seconds. All right, there we go. Hooray! Look, I got the squid. That means I can see you guys now. Let's see. What kind of shit were you guys talking before I could see you? Reject big monitor. Embrace people body. Shut the fuck up, dude. It's dead. Hey, he's back. Oh, wowee. All right, bro. Leftist internet. That's what I'm saying, bro. You look very handsome, so maybe I can convince Telecom to make it faster if I send a screenshot. Okay. I don't like the buzzing, dude. I don't know why it's buzzing today.
Let's get to the meat and potatoes.
More interested in the meat and
Oh,
said
oh,
that emissions.
oh.
I'm gonna replay what I think he might.
Just
What
wait,
do you
real
think?
quick.
Hold on,
Oh my god, dude.
guys.
Wait, hold on. Let
Yo.
me just say this, then you can tell me if you agree or disagree. I've been talked over so much today. Okay.
Not her face.
I don't know. Maybe we should watch this in 1.5 because I don't want to roast. I don't want to roast our boy over everything because
I don't
there's
want to
stuff
roast
coming up.
Booksmarts here.
I personally don't like the way kind of shit that.
But I
people
love the
do.
wait.
I see that somebody is Discord messaging me. I obviously can't respond to you. I'm live.
He's basically saying you're a dumb
It tells
fuck.
you on
Okay,
Discord that
what's
I'm
next?
alive, but I can't help you. Whatever it is that you need.
He can't help you. Don't believe
I
him.
don't like that. I don't like this, but you know, we're gonna put it
He
at
loves it.
1.5. We're gonna skip past some of this stuff because I'm more interested in the meat and bones of the back and forth.
Oh, he said
here.
meat and bones.
So my understanding, the economic understanding that I have is that first world countries are usually like pretty aggressive when it comes to wanting to put certain regulations on third world countries. When I say first world or third world, I'm talking about like scales of economy, not like Cold War era, who's the first world, second world, third world, right? And the reason why developing countries have problems with this, especially when it comes to like environmental regulations, is first world countries were able to pollute the fuck out of everything, industrialize as hard as possible, and now that their economies are in this like very advanced state, now they're saying, okay, we're gonna push for alternative energies. But when you look at a third world economy that is trying to industrialize, trying to advance their manufacturing, their economy, and everything, become more sophisticated, then if you start placing these regulations.
Whoa, let's go
That
back.
guy. I don't know if Mick Butts is a man. I just assume because plans to somebody.
I don't even know what the argument
Think
is.
so.
What are we arguing here?
I think he might win it. I have
Actually,
a good
you know
feeling
what? We'll
about
come back
him.
to Bookie.
I think he
Bookie
might win
boy.
it.
'Cause
You
there's
know,
a new
if I'm
destiny
being real with you, I think the time is nigh for socialism, bro. That's where I'm at
There
with
was a
it. Why are you guys
Destiny
still
video
feels
as
weird
well.
manning?
That's
Did somebody else
Destiny.
say something, or you feels weird manning me? Kind of yikes. We're looking at you, bud.
Destiny. That's a one. Mom and dad. Okay, so the funny thing is, I let y'all watch
Newly
this
elected
yesterday,
US
so
President Joe
whoever did their
Biden promised to
homework,
introduce a $15
you know, I'll
federal
critique
minimum
this,
wage once elected, which sparked a renewed debate over the pros and
we're
cons
going to
of the
critique
policy.
Destiny.
As I write this, the
Let's see if you
proposal
got
has
some
been
good
voted down in the
arguments.
Senate, which is extremely disappointing, but shows that Econ 101ism is alive and kicking, I suppose. Since the dawn of time, the USA's federal minimum wage has stagnated or even fallen, as you can see here. In the early 80s, it was around $3 an hour, and despite steady rises in the headline value, it has only kept pace with inflation since then. As this table shows, the ratio of minimum to median wages is only 33% for the US, compared to 54% for my own country of the UK, or 69% for Chile and Costa Rica.
Yo, you know what we got here? We got an elastic product. You know what that means? That means when people can go elsewhere and get their printing and copying done, they're gonna do it. You acting like we got an inelastic product and we don't.
In economics, this means the percentage change in one thing because of a percentage change in another thing. Stringer was talking about the change in demand owing to the change in the price of their product. But here, we will mostly be talking about the change in employment owing to a change in the minimum wage. So, an elasticity of -1 means that if the minimum wage increases by 1%, employment will fall by 1%. An elasticity of -0.1 means that if the minimum wage increases by 1%, employment will fall by 0.1%. You can see that the former would be hugely problematic, while the latter could easily be considered a price worth paying for higher wages. Beginning with a famous paper by David Card and Alan Kroeger in 1994, a wave of studies sometimes dubbed the New Minimum Wage Research have used careful empirical techniques to investigate the elasticity of employment with respect to minimum wage changes. Card and Kroeger looked at the effect of a minimum wage change using two adjacent US states, New Jersey and Pennsylvania, in 1992. New Jersey increased its minimum wage while Pennsylvania did not. This is a kind of natural experiment, when a policy applied to one area is not applied to a similar area, and comparisons between the two approximate the ideal of a lab experiment. The argument goes that if two areas differ only in the policy, in this case the minimum wage, any difference in outcomes between them, in this case employment, can be attributed to that policy. Card and Kroeger phoned fast food restaurants, which employ a lot of minimum wage workers both before and after the change.
God, you're greasy.
What they found was that far from reducing employment in New Jersey, the minimum wage may actually have increased it. The study made quite an impact. Reed Garfield, senior economist of the Joint Economic Committee, commented in 1996. The results of the study were extraordinary. Card and Kroeger seemed to have discovered a refutation of the law of demand. Economists were stunned. Because of these extraordinary results, they debated the results. Many economists argued that differences between the states were more than simply differences of minimum wage rates. Other economists argued that the study design was flawed. Since this, thousands of papers have been written in the USA and elsewhere on the employment effects of the minimum wage. One of the most pertinent critiques of Card and Kroeger was how narrow their study was. A single change in fast food restaurants in two relatively small US states should not be generalized to minimum wages everywhere. More recently, the frontier of minimum wage research has been led by people like Aaron Dube and his co-authors. They have mostly followed in Card and Kroeger's footsteps by taking advantage of natural experiments, but have substantially broadened the number of states they include, as well as the time frame of the studies and the depth they go into estimating the effects. For example, in a 2010 paper, Dube, Lester and Reich found no employment effects of the minimum wage using 316 adjacent pairs of states. That's Card and Kroeger times by hundreds.
My God, I don't even know what that is.
Nobody does.
A 2019 paper by Sengiz, Dube, Lindner and Zipera estimated the effects of minimum wages on the entire distribution of jobs, using 138 different minimum wage changes in the USA. The x-axis here shows the part of the wage distribution where...
Oh, and I don't want to do the research right now with all these numbers. So
Hello,
let's just...
and welcome to Philosophy Tube.
Oh my
Tonight's
gosh.
performance is about ideology.
Remember,
What is it, and where does it
that's-
come
I'm
from?
not even going to make that comment.
As a case study, I'm going to be looking at the work of Jordan Peterson. But before the show
love that
begins,
guy.
I'd like to say that at no point am I going to insult him, call him a bigot, speculate about
We
his private
are.
life,
Yes,
or
we
crack
are.
low-hanging
Yes,
jokes
we
about
are.
monsters. My show
He's
is about
not
having
telling
fun
you the truth
and
right
staying
now.
open to new ideas. And although Peterson and I would disagree on a number of very important things, I'm sure,
Everything.
I'd like to start
Except
off
the
in the
book.
right spirit by saying that his new book, Beyond Order, is genuinely pretty good.
Oh,
There's a small chance that Peterson himself is in the audience
it's
tonight,
not
in which
12
case,
years.
welcome to the show. In the event of a fire, please refrain from shouting fire in the crowded auditorium, but instead make your
What
way
is it,
calmly to the
12
exits, which are
languages?
located
12
on the far left.
rules of
And
life?
please remember, there is no smoking allowed in the theater.
Maybe we should sit and watch that book. Watch the book. Maybe we should sit and read that book. Not Beyond Order, 12 Rules of Life, whatever the book is.
Jordan Peterson is a Canadian clinical psychologist and public intellectual, author of 12 Rules for Life, the 2018
There we
smash
go.
hit that made
12
him a
Rules for
household
Life.
name.
Boys,
The subtitle for
get
12
your
Rules
pens
was
and papers
an
out.
antidote to chaos.
It's book
and in the
club.
marketing and the hype and even the foreword to the book, it was
Ladies,
billed as a way of achieving objectivity. The pitch was
probably
that
already read
society
the
has
book
become
and
too
you're probably
relativist
already
and nihilist, and
more
it's all the fault of
educated
these
and
postmodern neo-Marxists. We've lost our values.
influential on
But here comes Jordan
anything
Peterson,
of
and
the
he's going to sort it
topic,
all
so
out. Now, as a pitch, that's quite philosophically
let
minded.
us be dumb
And
boys
12 Rules was
together.
criticized for failing to achieve the objectivity it was striving for and for making a number of leaps of logic that favored right-wing political positions. However, things have changed a bit since 2018. Peterson has been on a nightmare odyssey through the medical system, and he's been catapulted into the limelight as a public figure. Neither of those are easy things to do, believe me. And now his new book, Beyond Order, contains a subtle but very important philosophical shift. Peterson is now doing a very interesting kind of philosophy called phenomenology. Phenomenology is famously
Okay, so is he really? Phenomenology. Get your Twitter fingers out, boys. It's research time. Even though I didn't want to research at all right now. Because we know what happens when I start researching. We go into rabbit holes. Rabbit holies. Ology. Ology? Ology. It's always an ology. Okay, so phenomenology is famously very simple. Okay, so we're going to figure out what it is first before we listen to what she has to say about it. In simple terms, phenomenology is commonly described as the study of phenomena, phenomena, as they okay, no, we're not going to do this. We're better than this, ladies and gents. We are better. Please, like I said, these streams are me educating myself.
Phenomenon.
Phenomena. Do, 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 do. Phenomena. That's how the song goes? And then... Oh. I will be right back. Body is...
very simple. To understand it, let's read a passage from philosopher Edmund Husserl. Immediate seeing, sehen, not merely the sensory seeing of experience, but seeing in general as primordial data consciousness of any kind whatsoever, is the ultimate source of justification for all rational statements. It has this right conferring function only because, and insofar as, its object giving is primordial. This world is not there for me as a mere world. Okay. Let's do an example. Phenomenology is all about focusing on what you experience. So check this out. So just go for a little walk around me, and you at home, keep your eyes on the couch, okay? Now then, what did you just experience? Did you, at any point, see the entire couch? No, you didn't. You can only ever see one side of it at a time. And yet, in your mind's eye, you weren't going, there is one side of a couch, there is another side of a couch. In your mind's eye, you experience it as one complete thing. And more than that, you experience it as being for something. It's a couch for sitting on. It looks comfy or ugly or whatever. Maybe it reminds you of a similar couch that you've seen. Maybe you'd like a couch like this one. Maybe you'd like to do something on a couch like this one. So your experience of it brings in bits of the past and bits of the future and desires and values. This is a very different way of looking at the world than a scientist or a computer might. Peterson actually gives a great example. Imagine you get an envelope with some important news in it. Scientifically, objectively, the envelope is a rectangle of paper and it has ink molecules printed on it, but that's not how you experience it. This envelope contains your past, your future, your test results, maybe the rest of your life. You experience it not just as an object, but as something with values and meaning. I can see that you're still a little bit shaky on this. It is a bit weird, so let's do something really cool and apply it to people. In fact, let's apply it to me. For those who didn't realize already, I am a transgender woman, and when I first started transitioning, I would go out into the world dressed how I like to be dressed, and some people would see me and they would think, well, that's a man, but by the way that they are dressed and their mannerisms, they are indicating to me that they would like to be treated as a woman. And if they were very polite, they would go, hello, miss, how can I help you? And if they were very rude, they'd say something else. But after a while, something interesting started to happen. People didn't have that initial experience and then have to think about it. They just started recognizing me as a woman. something in their brains, or maybe in me, flipped. And they just started going, "Hello, miss, how can I help you?" This is similar to, but not the same thing as, passing. Passing is when a cis person doesn't realize that you're trans. I'm not talking about that, because I have trans friends who I know are trans. They don't pass to me. And yet, I just experience them as the gender they are. If you've never known a trans person, it might be hard to get your head around, but I have an old friend who's a trans woman, and a while ago she asked me, "Have I ever done anything in front of you that you thought made me look like a man?" And I said, "No, you kind of can't, because my brain has flipped now. If you do something stereotypically masculine, like burp or fart or scratch your ass, I don't see that as, oh, there's a man. I experience it as a woman doing something stereotypically masculine, and therefore it's funny to me." Husserl talked about immediate seeing. Edith Stein talked about an experience being primordially given. But the bottom line is, I just experience you as female. And this opens up all sorts of questions, like, do people recognize me as a woman because I am one, or did I become one when they started recognizing me as such? Is gender something in you, or is it a relation between you and other people? If a tree falls in the forest and nobody's around to hear it, what are its pronouns? Answers on a postcard, please. The bottom line for us and Peterson is, we experience the world not as a collection of facts and observations, but a collection of values and meanings. We are always, in Peterson's language, telling ourselves a story. And if you're very clever, you'll already have spotted, oh, that's why he does all the self-help stuff. Peterson's always talking about being mindful of what you pay attention to, what story are you telling yourself, and phenomenology is a great base on which to build that. Because in theory, if you change the story you tell yourself, change the meanings you see in the world, then you can change the world. This week is the 1-month anniversary of the Lewisham arson attack. 1 month since an unknown arsonist savagely took the lives of 5 people and a homeless man. And now another building has burned down in Hackney. It's terrifying. And almost as bad as the fires themselves is the anti-fire hysteria that has been conjured up in the minds of the woke left cancel mob. I think wokeness has gone absolutely mad in this country. My brother is a smoker. He's always coming home smelling of smoke. And he has to stand outside to smoke a cigarette because you can't even smoke indoors anymore. It's anti-fire wokeness gone mad, and I'm not a bigot. I'm not. My niece is a transgender, and I think that that is fine. She's in the fire department, and with this ongoing arson crisis, we have to support our emergency services heroes more than ever. Personally, I think her decision to join the fire department might have had something to do with her marriage falling apart, but I support her right to choose. Or his right to choose. It's so confusing. Biologically, he is still a she, because she can still get pregnant. And objectively, that's been the job of women since Victorian times. So I sent her a message for International Women's Day, and she gave me this big lecture. And I said, "Darling, if you're really a man, then what you're doing is mansplaining." She said I shouldn't even speak to my brother. She said he's the arsonist because he's always smelling of smoke, and he's always going into people's houses with large barrels of petrol. And I said, "Darling, that's cancel culture. He's a traveling petrol salesman. Of course he's going into people's houses. What kind of a world are we living in, where a hard-working, upstanding, handsome man gets accused of something nefarious just because he is always going into people's houses with large barrels of flammable liquid during an ongoing arson crisis?" Okay, we understand the bones of Jordan Peterson. We experience the world not as a collection of facts, but a collection of values and meanings. Now let's build out to the muscles of Jordan Peterson and talk about structuralism. Structuralism is famously very simple. To understand it, let's read a passage from philosopher Roland Barthes. A signified can have several signifiers. This is indeed the case in linguistics and psychoanalysis. It is also the case in mythical concepts. It has at its disposal a limited mass of signifiers. I can find 1,000. Okay, well, I'll give you the easy version. Structuralism started out looking at texts and saying, hey, don't these seem to fit into patterns? Like Joseph Campbell's Hero with 1,000 Faces. Supposedly, there are these proto-myths that keep coming up in our stories again and again. Peterson's always talking about this stuff. He's always analyzing Disney or Harry Potter and saying, oh, hey, this symbol is actually a very old thing from ancient whatever, and if you learn these maps of meaning that structure your experience, then you can start taking control of your life. In order to understand the meaning of the text, we have to look at other texts. By the way, text here can mean a literal text like a book, but it can also be a play, a film, a comic, this video, an interpretive dance, basically anything that can carry meaning. So then the structuralists were like, well, what if, as well as looking at the other texts, we also looked at the broader ideas that are hanging around in the culture? Like, for instance, there's this bit in the Bible where Jesus says, render unto Caesar what is Caesar's, and render unto God what is God's. And if we want to understand the meaning of that, then we should probably read the rest of the Bible, yeah. But also, what was the Roman occupation of Judea like? What did Caesar really mean to those people back then? Could be good to know. Let's take another example. There are some recent adverts on the London Underground recruiting for the Metropolitan Police, and a lot of them show an officer of colour in uniform smiling. Now, on its own, that doesn't necessarily mean anything. But the fact that the Met is about 90% white, and the fact that there are ongoing demonstrations in this country against police racism and brutality, maybe tells us something about what they are trying to communicate. The real meaning of the text, or at least one possible meaning of it, is given by something that is not present in the text itself. Basically, meaning is like jazz. It's about the notes you don't play. Like I said, this should all be familiar to Jordan Peterson fans. But if the structuralists said the meaning is about the notes you don't play, the post-structuralists said, well, which notes exactly did you not play? And why didn't you play them? If we're talking about the broader ideas that are hanging around in the culture, why are those ideas the ones that are hanging around? What hidden assumptions is the text making? Where do they come from? And whom do they serve? What are you not saying? I love the royal family. I remember when Wills and Kate got married. Oh, it was so romantic. Everybody was just so happy for them. It was a real coming together moment for the nation. Or almost everybody was happy for them. There were a few killjoys. It seems like there's more and more of them around these days. In the latest one of these awful arson attacks, one of the Union Jack flags outside Buckingham Palace was singed slightly by the sparks that came off the orphanage as it was burning. And I saw some heartless people on Twitter who just didn't care about the flag. And I thought, how can you be so cruel? My brother told me that the fire department wanted to put out the flag, but they were afraid of being called racist. He just happened to be walking past the fire as it was starting. Extraordinary coincidence, I suppose. It's the Queen I feel sorry for. It must have been terribly frightening for her. She's been such a class act, really keeping the nation together. And that's what I love about the royals. They aren't divisive. You don't see them out in the streets making a noise and waving signs around. I hate how this arson crisis has become just another opportunity for polarization. I dread to think how the London mayoral elections are going to play out. I know some people think that the royals are a bit old-fashioned, but I won't apologize for loving them. They're like popcorn or cigarettes. I've given up smoking. I have. But it's hard to resist the temptation. I love the smell when a man has been smoking and he stands close to you. Sometimes you love something, even though you know that you shouldn't. Alrighty then. So we've got the structuralists who say that meaning is about the notes you don't play, and we've got the post-structuralists who ask, why didn't you play those notes? What Peterson does is he cuts right in the middle there and he says, it's biology. Check this out. If I say, I think that female politician is being overbearing and aggressive in a way that women shouldn't be, then that sounds subjective. Somebody might come back to me and say, well, first of all, I disagree, and second of all, why do you think women shouldn't be aggressive? Where did you get that assumption? Whom does it serve? But if I say, I think that female politician is acting out the Jungian archetype of the devouring mother, which is present in the evolved collective unconscious of humanity, then that sounds objective, doesn't it? Jordan Peterson did say that about former Ontario Premier Kathleen Wynne, and people criticised him for being sexist. And he said, how dare you, I'm not being sexist. I'm just reporting the facts. You are trying to silence objective truth. There's this weird tension in Peterson's work because he's trying to have his cake and eat it. The core of it is subjective phenomenological experience. And then he builds out to a kind of structuralism where he says the world is interpreted through stories that get their meaning from outside the text. But then he just stops. He seems so incurious about who gets to tell stories, whose meanings are allowed to stick and whose are not. And it's maddening, because the ideas he's discussing are really interesting, but it's like he refuses to read any philosophy written after 1967. Peterson has said in the past that post-structuralist philosophers like Jacques Derrida were trying to get rid of the idea of objective truth. They're questioning the idea that a text can have objective meaning. It's this big threat to Western civilization. And some philosophers do question the idea of objective truth. But I think that when people hear that, they go, because what they hear is questioning the idea that I can be right. Questioning the idea that I can win the debate. Fortunately, on this channel, we don't care about being right. Every episode of Philosophy Tube is wrong. In fact, I refuse to be correct. The goal is to be wrong in interesting ways. When philosophers say they are questioning the idea of objective truth, what they mean is there are always some notes that are not being played. And we can get curious about why. Knowledge is always known by some person, and people have their flaws, their blind spots, their financial incentives, their jockeying for position. So what gets called knowledge, and who gets to be seen as a knowledgeable expert, has a kind of social dimension to it. If you wanted to be very inflammatory and provocative, you could say, well, you're denying that there's objective truth, or are you saying there are things that I can't know because I'm white, or whatever. You could spin it that way, but only at the risk of looking like you haven't done the reading. Having looked at the bones and the muscles of Jordan Peterson, now let's look at the crispy outer shell, the self-help stuff. And if you've gotten a lot of help from Peterson's work, that's really cool. I would never take that away from you. In fact, I think there's some advice in here that's genuinely really good. I particularly enjoyed chapter 2, imagine who you could be, then aim single-mindedly at that. I did that ages ago, turned out I'm a woman, 10 out of 10. Beyond Order is basically 12 Rules for Life again, but with the spicier stuff taken out. It's basically just a normal self-help book now. And the advice it gives is sometimes pretty good, but it's fairly standard across the genre. Purely by chance, I came across this blog by Dr. Nerdlove, which contains pretty much the exact same advice, except blogs don't charge you 20 quid to read them. But it's inherited some of the problems of the self-help genre as well. For instance, I can't help but notice that if I did everything Peterson suggests, clean my room, take responsibility, yada, 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 I would still be living in a country where I'm not allowed to get married, start a family, or get healthcare the same way everyone else is. Unfortunately, no amount of self-help is going to fix all of your problems, but that's an issue with the whole genre, not just Peterson. The reason I bring it up, though, is it shows us that Peterson's work is aimed at helping a particular kind of self. What we are talking about here is what philosophers call subjectification, and it's famously very simple. To understand it, let's read a passage from philosopher Louis Althusser. Okay. Imagine that you are reading the newspaper and you see the headline, "Nation celebrates royal baby." Now that's not quite the same thing as saying lots of people within the nation celebrate the royal baby, is it? Because by saying the nation celebrates, you're subtly implying that anyone who isn't celebrating isn't really part of the nation. That's one of the notes that you're not playing. If you don't feel this way, then you're not really one of us. The celebration and the public declaration of it actually constructs the nation and creates national subjects, hence subjectification. One of the best ways of doing this is to use an emotion. If you just say, everyone in Britain supports the monarchy, then people reject the message. There are millions of us that don't. But by using an emotion, particularly one as powerful as joy about a new baby, you smuggle the real message under the radar. There's a bonus effect as well. Philosopher Sarah Ahmed points out that anyone who doesn't have the emotion they are told to have can be called a killjoy. At best, a national buzzkill. At worst, a national threat. Now, it's very important to note that people don't always do this deliberately. News editors aren't sitting in smoky rooms going, hee, we will use the royal baby story to push the secret mind control. Be careful. It's very easy to slide into conspiracy, in particular anti-Semitic conspiracy theory about Jews running the media. Ideology isn't a conspiracy. Remember we talked about the notes that aren't being played? Well, the point is, we don't realize they're not being played because their absence is assumed to be natural. And we all make those sorts of assumptions, including me. Basically, ideologies are like arseholes. Everyone's got one, we use it every day, but you very rarely look at your own unless something's gone wrong. So let's take a closer look at Jordan Peterson's arsehole. A lot of Peterson's self-help work is about having the right emotion. In particular, he cautions against acting from resentment, because resentment just makes everything worse. I think this is great advice. I've seen it happen in my professional acting career. People get rejected at auditions, they take it personally, they get bitter, and then they do get a lead role, and they start acting like, yeah, no, I'm Johnny Big Bollocks. And it's like, dude, you are playing Hamlet, but it's a profit share production in the car park of a Toby Carvery in Slough. Stop shouting at the makeup artists. They become bad actors, and nobody wants to work with them. So yes, I agree with Peterson. Sometimes arrogance and resentment, even in the face of genuine injustice, can just make everything worse. However, let's bring in what we just learned about emotions creating subjects. In 12 Rules for Life, Peterson had a bit of a bee in his bonnet about Marxists being fueled by resentment. This is a very old idea, goes back to the 19th century. Socialists don't care about the poor, they just hate the rich. This is a theme that some of Peterson's more conservative fans jumped on. Author Jim Prosser wrote a biography called Savage Messiah, How Jordan Peterson is Saving Western Civilization, which I read with the aid of a large number of painkillers. And almost every other page is Prosser saying Marxists are resentful and spiteful and nasty, and really I think it's cancel culture. I think you're trying to cancel Karl Marx, Jim. Well, some of us believe in free speech, babes. Accusing your enemies of being fueled by resentment is genius, because it's completely bulletproof. A Marxist could say, well, I don't think I am fueled by resentment, actually. And Peterson could say, well, you see, it's unconscious resentment. You can't tell, but I had a dream about Carl Jung, and he told me that you are no good. And it's also completely reversible. You could say, I think Marxists are fueled by resentment. And Marxists could say, well, I think that you're only saying that because you're fueled by resentment. The resentment of Marxists and our long history of very successful podcasts. But the point of accusing your enemies of being fueled by resentment is that it gives you an excuse not to listen to them. Particularly if you dress it up in objective-sounding language about archetypes and the collective unconscious. You construct a community of people, Marxists, feminists, trans people, who are irrational and resentful and hateful, not like us. We are compassionate and thoughtful. And in doing so, you exclude that group of people from the domain of legitimate political discussion. And there's a word for this. A word for when there are notes that are not being played, whose absence is assumed to be natural, and which help construct a political community through subjectification. And the word is ideology. So it's always good to squat over the mirror and take a good hard look at your own ideology sometimes. Because if you don't do the thinking, someone else will do the thinking for you. Hate can be a powerful emotion. And make no mistake, the people behind these arson attacks, whoever they are, hate Britain. When I was growing up, I was told that Britain is the greatest country in the world. We built railways across India. We ended slavery. We civilized the Irish. But now some people want to take that history away from us. The same mentality that drives these arson attacks also drives the anti-fire mob who are tearing down statues and making a noise and enforcing Stalinist fire safety codes and threatening free speech. I love Britain. And I love the values that bind us all together. I believe that we need to defend our values, and that's why I'm proud to support Ivan Schmitz for Mayor of London. Ivan is accustomed to success. He is a businessman, a father, and an entrepreneur in the field of direct petrochemical supply. He is promising to give our brave police heroes much stronger powers to fight the firebugs and the anti-fire woke brigade. Ivan is the leadership that London needs. He'll keep us safe and sound. He's always taken care of me. He's the best big brother a girl could ask for. This video was sponsored by CuriosityStream. You probably heard of them. They're a subscription streaming service with thousands of titles, little mini documentaries about science and technology and nature and history. If you like my stuff but wish that it had a bit more of a sciencey bent, you'll probably find something to tickle your brain there. You could also try watching something and see if you can identify the ideologies at work. I particularly enjoyed this little number called The Imperfect Brain, part of a series called The Curious Mind, about how stress, anxiety, and depression can affect us. Normally, CuriosityStream is $19.99 a year, but if you go to curiositystream.com/philosophytube, then you can get 26% off. And you'll also get free access to Nebula, which is another streaming service. So hey, double trouble. CuriosityStream don't sponsor any overtly political content. So if you're seeing this, then you know that my video has absolutely no ideology in it. I'll be donating my fee to Sisters Uncut, an organization here in the UK who help fight violence against women. And that decision too is completely ideology-free.
Immanuel Kant was a real pissant who was very rarely stable. Heidegger was a boozy beggar who could think you under the table. David Hume could outconsume Wilhelm Friedrich Hegel. And Wittgenstein was a beery swine who was just as schlossed as Schlegel.
Newly elected US President Joe Biden promised to introduce a $15 federal minimum wage once elected, which sparked a renewed debate over the pros and cons.
Rather than looking at like an 11 out of 10 girl that you will never interact with in your entire life, being able to donate to and interact with a 7 out of 10 girl, that's like an infinitely more elevating experience.
I'm just going to read Amaranth's follow list right now, like just for the last couple of days. Check this out. These are real numbers.
All right, Train, are you ready for the hardest question of the night? Do you agree that it's a little bit bullshit that women will do hot tub streams, they do these super sexy streams, and then like the Coomer posters come out and they start complaining about how they're being treated on Twitch and the tweets and the harassment and blah, blah, blah. And it's like, okay, well, this is kind of the content you're doing. It's kind of the audience you're going to get. It doesn't make the harassment right, but like you can't really complain about it, right?
Well, you can to a certain degree, yes.
Yeah, but if you are, you're kind of like doing like the political narrative meme, right?
No, I don't think so.
Wait, well, what were you saying earlier?
Yeah, so
I would like to talk, before I leave, I would like to talk about the just chatting section on Twitch.
Oh, perfect. I thought I'd be bringing that up, but it's you. Corinna, go ahead.
And
okay, hit us.
I just want to start by saying I don't find anything wrong with it, but I think it's crazy how people are now wearing like sexy lingerie instead of swimming suits and getting away with it.
Yeah, you want to know why they get away with it? Because
Why?
if you, I've had this argument 700,000 times, right? If you even get remotely close to bringing that up, it gets into like some crazy conversation about telling a woman what she can and can't wear and why she's wearing it versus why she's not.
Twitch doesn't want that kind of heat.
The thing that is more fascinating to me than like the people doing it is the overwhelming size of the audience, right?
Yeah.
Because pornography is available to all of those people.
Literally right there, yeah.
Watching the hot tub streams. And I had a conversation with someone about this. And basically what it came down to is like, I don't know if you guys watch Always Sunny, but it was like the Dennis monologue where he's like, the girls can't be wild. We have to see the girls go wild. And I think there's like something about like watching streamers that you know do like as like doing something else than
Like
in
something
this,
could
like,
happen, you know what I'm saying?
right in this like new
Okay, people,
erotic
what did we
light
learn
and like
in the
kind
last
of
video?
watching like a hawk for 13 minutes being like
Actually, let's go back real quick. I just want to put something on temporarily, but what did we just learn in the last video? And did we ever figure out what phenomenology is? It is commonly described as a study of phenomena as they manifest in our experience, the way we perceive and understand phenomena, and the meaning of phenomena and of the meaning phenomena have in our subjective experience. More simply stated, phenomenology is the study of individuals' lived experience of the world. More simply, what? How do you? Okay, let's look up phenomena, which I think I already did. Science of phenomena as distinct from that of the nature of being. An approach that concentrates on the study of conscious and objects of the direct experience. Okay, you need to go to the literature. Google, you ain't enough. Phenomena, an observable fact or event. Object or aspect known through the senses rather than by thought or intuition. Is that really what this means? Temporal or saptio? Give me a sec, people. We're going to... Let's look this up.
Spatiotemporal.
Spatiotemporal. I was so close. Spatiotemporal. Okay. A temporal or spatio-temporal object of sensory experience as distinguished from an phenomena. What are these words? Belonging to both space and time or to space-time. So temporal is just time then? Maybe? I don't know if we came any close to understanding what we're reading. A thing as it is in itself as distinct from a thing as it is knowable by the senses through phenomenal attributes. Okay, so phenomena. Let's get the make sure we're saying it right. As I whisper into your ear. Y'all see this? What it do? What it do YouTube? What it do Twitch?
Phenomenon.
Phenomenon.
Noumenon.
Noumenon. Phenomenon and noumenon. And what is temporal? Thing as it is itself.
Noumenon.
Noumenon. Relating to worldly as opposed to spiritual affairs, secular. Relating to time. So yeah, just time. Okay. Well, relating to time. Okay, so phenomenon, an observable fact or event. So we're studying basically observable fact or events. So the study of, and I think that's what it says here. Study of observe, well, but then this says unusual people or events as they appear without any further study of explanation. And then the literature. Wait a minute, where did this come from? Is this what we read the first time? Oh. Example. So it's just looking at stuff. The study of looking at stuff. They're studying the green flash that sometimes happens just after sunset or just before sunrise. Okay, so we're speaking philosophically. So of course, nothing is actually, well, I mean, there is a process that is played out to come to a logical conclusion or a set of premises that lead to a factual sentence. I don't think the last part was the proper terminology used in philosophy. I think y'all can understand that way better than P plus Q equals T or some stuff like that. No, if P then Q or something like that. Green flash that sometimes happen just after. Last example. So then so why are we so you're having long debated talks about why this is happening and why did I see that green light or why did she scream as she was giving birth or something like that? Or I mean, we're just, but then it says unusual. So what's unusual? I'm trying to think of something unusual. Oh, something unusual. So if you get, so I've had a piercing, one of these nostrils, and when you get that piercing, I think I had it in my right nostril. When you get that piercing, an unusual phenomenon that happens is that you usually get a tear one single teardrop comes down your eye, and so I guess and it corresponds with the nostril. So right eye, right nostril, then right eye, left nostril, left eye, and once they push it through all the way, or I think if I remember correctly, this was like maybe like 5 years ago. I think he had just something like a stapler in a sense to puncture through the nose, and then they had the piercing. But right when he punctured, and it felt like it was really trying to rip through there. Like you could slowly feel it, like taking a sweet time to get through your nostril. But once it poked through that, and he or she or whoever's administering the piercing will tell you that you're going to drop that one teardrop. So I guess in philosophical terms, if we're studying this, then I guess we're just making an observation about exactly what's happening, why it, but you're not, it says not studying it further. So you're not asking like, why is it happening? Or, where, well, I guess you already know the origin, so you don't have to really think about that. But I guess you don't look more in depth. You don't I mean, this is not science, so you're not experimenting on anything. You're just, but you can't even ask questions, because if you ask questions, you're asking me like, okay, how did the teardrop feel? Then it's then it says you're passing the observation part, and now you're into exploring of ideas and thoughts and something like that. I don't know, but okay, let's go back to the video. But y'all probably already know this more than I noticed at this point. And now I can't find the video. What happened? History. Oh, come on. Clean history. History. Oh, come on. Clean history. Oh, wrong thing. What was I watching? We're going to speed this up. We're going to knock this out real quickly, people. Okay, too fast.
Now then, what did you just experience? Did you at any point see the entire couch? No, you didn't. You can only ever see
I did.
in your mind's eye.
With
And you
the
at home,
past and
keep your eyes on the couch,
I
okay?
put it together and I saw both.
Very simple. To understand it, let's read a passage from philosopher Edmund Husserl, Immediate Seeing, a very interesting kind of philosophy called phenomenology. Phenomenology is famous.
Okay, that's what we were looking up. Oh, I got it. Okay, so she is claiming that Peterson, man of the hour, the druggie. My druggie, he was probably listening to too much Chance the Rapper. Got him in a coma. Chance, no. Is he really practicing phenomenology? Okay, so. Speed it up. Speed it up.
Figure. Neither of those are easy things to do, believe me. And now his new book, Beyond Order.
Well, people, I didn't get any copyrights the last video, so we'll keep playing this. We get to the next thing, but is this ever gonna play? Jordan, hit me with it. Let me have
Welcome
it.
to the Jordan B. Peterson podcast. You can support these podcasts by donating to Dr. Peterson's Patreon.
Thank you.
The link
for
to which can be
explaining that to
found
me.
in the description.
2 hours.
Dr. Peterson's self-development programs, self-authoring, can be found at self-authoring.
We have like a
feature that's
dissertation?
specific to a capitalist system. It's a feature that's general to all systems of creative production that are known. And so it's like a natural law. And
Mr. Jordan. Ooh-wee, we're really getting into the weeds, boys and ladies. Like, phenomenology of the divine. That sounds like some 12
hello,
rules of
everyone.
life.
Thank you again for showing
Hello,
up.
Mr. Peterson.
So tonight, we're going to finish off the story of Noah and also the story of the Tower of Babel.
So
And
the
I
one
hope
thing
that
I
we
will give to him is that I actually do love Bible stories. I don't know if it's a kid growing up and just experiencing that through parents, grandparents, and having to go to church like every day. Not every day, but I would go on like Wednesdays and Sundays. And at the time, I didn't really appreciate it, but just having the knowledge, like go back and just dig through my brain about certain parables and Bible tales, and I guess theology in general. Just there's something divine, I would say, in just the way they write and the stories that they can put together, even just like stories of Jesus. Now, of course, some of it contradicts itself and doesn't fall into like actual God coming down and saving people and stuff like that, and whether it's true or not. But just how like the way they use metaphors and analogies, more so analogies, I guess, and I would say exaggerating some of the events that may probably have occurred, like Noah going up to the ark and seeing the tablets. Maybe there was some writing somewhere, or maybe he was able to, whatever he saw, turn that into whatever he wanted it to be. And then of course, since a lot of people didn't know how to read or write in that time, maybe he was able to just pass down and everybody just believed whatever he said. Maybe that was an event that happened, whether it was the actual God sending, actually dropping the tablet in front of him in big stones and clear blue, English words or whatever words they were reading at the time. I guess Hebrew, which I have no idea how to read that. But anyways, yeah.
And then we're going to turn to the Abrahamic stories. And they're a very complex set of stories. They sit between the earliest stories in Genesis, like the Tower of Babel, and then the stories of Moses, which are extraordinarily well developed. The Abrahamic stories, the whole sequence of them, multiple stories joined together, and they're, I found them very daunting, very difficult to understand. And so I'm going to stumble through them the best that I can. I would say that's probably the best way to think about this, because they have a narrative content that's quite strange. I was reading a book, well, it's called Disappearance of God, that I found quite helpful. And the author of that book argues that one of the things that happens in the Old Testament is that God is very manifest at the beginning, in terms of personal appearances even, and then that proclivity fades away as the Old Testament develops. And there's a parallel development that's maybe causally linked. I'm not exactly sure how to conceptualize it, but the causally link is that the stories about individuals become more and more well developed. So it's as if as God fades away, so to speak, the individual becomes more and more manifest. And there's a statement in the Old Testament, the location which I don't recall. Well, we'll probably go into.
I don't know where he's going with this, but this is what I try to tell everybody that I come across, that you are God itself. And he's saying here, so when God disappears and the man manifests. Now maybe he's going to say this is a bad thing and that's why we need God into us, and that's why we fall into our lustful sins and stuff like that, because we don't have any of the divine power to keep us sane and onto our ways. But get rid of the God, then you realize you are the God. So I'll take that part.
Whoever he's speaking with, I don't remember who that is, that he's going to disappear and let man essentially goes away and see what happens. Not complete disappearance, but maybe a transformation to something
wait,
that one
I
people
think
regard
you
more
just said it right there.
essentially goes away and see what happens. Not complete disappearance, but maybe a transformation to something that one people regard more as disappearance, but let man, whoever he's speaking with, I don't remember who that is, that he's going to disappear and let man essentially goes away and see what happens. Not complete disappearance, but maybe a transformation to something that one people regard more as a psychological phenomena rather than the sort of objective entity that God seems to be in the beginning of the biblical stories. So I've been wrestling with that a lot, because the notion that God appears to Abraham multiple times, and that's not a concept that's easy for modern people to grasp. I mean, for us, generally speaking, apart from say issues of faith, God isn't someone who makes himself personally manifest in our lives. He doesn't appear to us. That's, I suppose, why the question of belief is so paramount for modern people. I presume that if God was in the habit of appearing to you, you likely wouldn't have a problem with belief. I mean, it might be more complicated than that, but that's how it seems to me. And so when we read stories about God making himself manifest, either to a nation, say in the case of Israel, or to individuals, it's not easy to understand. It's not easy to understand why people would write stories like that if they thought like we thought. I mean, really, it wasn't that long ago that the Bible was written. Say, from a biological perspective, it's really only yesterday. It's a couple of thousand years, say 4,000 years, something like that. That's not very long ago. From a biological perspective, it's nothing. So the first thing I tried to do was to see if I could figure out how to understand that. And so I'll start the lecture once we finish the remains of the story of Noah. I'll start the lecture with an attempt to situate the Abrahamic stories in a context that might make them more accessible, at least a context that worked for me to make them more accessible. Let's conclude the Noah story first. However, when we ended